I think it is understandable and appropriate to lead this discussion now, how we can encourage and potentially think about mandatory vaccination within the European Union. This needs discussion. This needs a common approach, but it is a discussion that I think has to be led.
In the previous press conference, we showed to the world how the contracts signed between the European Union and in particular by Ursula von der Leyen with these vaccination companies were released to the public and to us as members of the European Parliament. 20, 30, 40% of these contracts are blacked out right now. Nobody in Europe, and even us, as elected by the people for the people, do not know what these contracts exactly contain. What are the clauses in these contracts? What provisions were agreed by the Commission and on behalf of the states by the Commission? So what we've seen happening with this pandemic clearly violates Article 1 of Treaty of the European Union. This is what makes the difference between a tyranny and democracy. When you know everything about what your government does, that's democracy. When the government knows everything about you, that is tyranny. Now, when these contracts that are worth billions and billions of euros, we don't even know the exact figures, are not fully disclosed to us, to you as journalists, and to the European citizens, that's a problem. We don't live in a democracy. We live in what is called a constitutional democracy. So there are certain fundamental rights that are individual, that are personal. No one can vote, for example, to chop one of your hands off. Why not? If you're right-handed or left-handed and you have a higher risk of stabbing someone, let's chop everybody's hand to make sure that everybody's safe. Is this the kind of society we want? That is the reason why there are certain fundamental rights that are individual and personal. And one of such rights is the integrity of the body. No one outside of you can ever vote for you to inject something, to eat something, to do something with your body. It should be solely your will and your wish what to do with your body. It's simple as that. If we don't understand this basic principle, we don't understand how the Western world was developed. Because this is what is happening right now in China, for example, where prisoners, for example, body parts and organs are taken away from them to be given to the communist bureaucrats. Is that the kind of Europe that we want? I don't believe so. Now you mentioned that some people or some so-called experts are claiming that the non-vaccinated people are a threat to the vaccinated one. Well, let me ask you something back. Well, if they are vaccinated and these vaccines are working so well, why are they feel threatened by someone who's not vaccinated? Because that's the reason why you're vaccinated. That's the reason why you're taking a medical product, for you to be protected. Not to blame the fact that these medical products are not working as they were marketed on those that are not taking such products. In the month of April 2021, Reinders Didier, the Commissioner on Justice, came in the plenary of the Parliament and he said, and I quote, "The proposal put forward by the Commission is firmly built on two core values, non-discrimination and data protection." And look where we are right now. In the month of November 2021, people cannot go to work in Europe if they don't have a green certificate, and in some countries, if they are not vaccinated, even against their will, people cannot enter stores if they don't have a green certificate. People cannot travel, not between countries, but even using the local transportation, if they don't have a green certificate. In our case, we were not allowed to enter the European Parliament if we don't have a green certificate. Because someone who's vaccinated can get infected and can spread the infection, and someone who's tested can be infected after the person leaves the place of testing. So what kind of Europe do we want? a kind of Europe where the rights and liberties of every European citizen is respected, or a tyrannical Europe, as the USSR was before, where people do not have or are not acknowledged to have basic fundamental rights, but all these rights are seen by an unelected bureaucracy as privileges granted by the government. And I quote from Article 3 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, which states the following: rights to the integrity of a person. Everyone has the right to respect for his or her physical or mental integrity. Paragraph 2 of Article 3 says, in the fields of medicine and biology, the following must be respected in particular: the free and informed consent of the person concerned. Now, is this happening right now in Europe or not? Because what we've seen happening in Austria, for example, people will not be able to exercise basic fundamental rights unless they are vaccinated against their will. This is what is happening in more and more countries. They are not acknowledging the side effects, as my colleague said. They are not acknowledging the basic fundamental rights of the people. And we live right now, slowly but surely. We are transitioning, we are witnessing the transition of the European Union from a democracy to tyranny. Many of us, actually all of us, he's from Lithuania, he was under USSR. They are from former Yugoslavia. I'm from Romania, a former communist country. We all lived in tyranny. We know what that is. That's the reason why we are speaking up. Because we don't want the citizens of Europe to live the kind of tyranny that unfortunately we all had to go through. We see what is happening in China right now with the social credit score, where the government is monitoring and surveilling all the people from the beginning to end. Everything that they do, everything, everywhere where they walk, they control everything and they watch everything. This is the example of a tyranny. When the government knows everything about you, where you go, what you eat, where you enter, that's the tyrannical system. And we've seen this system being implemented right now under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen, slowly but surely in the European Union. The Green Certificate was just the first step. There are a few more proposals right now under debate in the Parliament. The European Wallet ID, for example, the European Social Security Card. All these things that are creating a system that will monitor, control, supervise, and condition. We should not forget that the European Union was created in a total opposition of the Soviet Union. Even in the article, in the first article of the Treaty of the European Union, it says, EU, it's an area of freedom, not of control, not of condition. So, or not of mass surveillance, an area of freedom. And it's our duty and our call to fight for this. If you are a free citizen, to go at every corner and show to another citizen that you are complying with the law, this is absolutely insane. If you read the vision of the founding fathers of the European Union, none of them, even in their worst nightmares, never ever believed or dreamed that something like this will happen in the European Union.
So in Europe, they say, yeah, we have a huge number of cases, so we need DGC to facilitate. But in India, they don't have for months now, but they still have plans to introduce COVID certificate. Why? There is no justification for that. So there must be a different global position on this. Chinification, that's a good term, yeah. Why? Also in India, they are starting to condition people. There are some free food programs, social programs. You cannot get your free food or help unless you are vaccinated or you have a DGC or similar. Why? When there are almost 0 cases for months now. People are coerced, people are blackmailed, people are forced to take the vaccine. So in Croatia, the majority, their free will, the majority is decided to go to this crisis without the vaccines, with other measures. I think that's the situation in Bulgaria, Romania, perhaps even some Western European countries. We should not coerce a certain medical product on anyone.
Sir, you rightly ask about the numbers, 25,000 deaths or so in Belgium and other countries. I don't believe these numbers. That's the problem. You know, if you define the case of COVID and then resulting death as someone having a positive PCR test, that's not enough. The 18th of October ECDC guidance on how to define the case should be the basis for that. The doctor has to diagnose that you are sick, and if you have a positive test, and the PCR methodology is highly questionable in itself. So the numbers that I look for, and the 3 institutions responsible for statistics, including COVID statistics in the European Union, said that excess mortality is the only reliable and comparable, that means harmonized across the European Union, statistic related to COVID. That's where we have to look at. And when I dig down in the age groups, I don't see any excess mortality up to age of 45 or 50, none at all. So the elderly people, the sick people with other illnesses are the risk groups. We should help them, we should protect them, and potentially we should vaccinate them. Because the vaccines, what they are, some of them experimental, you know that. Some of them continue to be trial process up to 2023, so they could be a risk in itself. But I'm not a medical person, I'm a numbers person. And the numbers don't tell the story that the decisions are based on. So I don't know how my COVID certificate data is processed. I cannot see that. So I don't want that to be, again, in the Parliament and across Europe. As I tried to indicate in my brief presentation, the pandemic basically is over. So all these restrictions, including the national or international or European certificates, are not needed anymore. Of course, we have to take care of our hygiene. Of course, I'm not saying there is no COVID, but there is no need. There is no data that shows that these certificates are needed anymore. So we have to stop that right now. We should all look at the scientists, other scientists, and there are a number of them. Some of them are discredited around the world. So we have to debate that, but the numbers don't show that we have a pandemic as severe as we had before. So therefore, all the restrictions should be removed, maybe gradually, but not to increase as Austria, Lithuania, and some other countries are doing. This is not based on numbers, and that's a major issue.